I am what's my job title? I'm the regional manager for North America and Europe at the University of York. So I work with students who are interested in studying all levels coming to York from those areas. And I'm joined by Devin Diggs today, who is a current student, a current scholar at the university. Devin will have his chance to shine later on. We'll get him to tell us about his experience studying at York. I have primed him with some questions, some things he might like to talk about, but I'm sure both of us will be happy to answer questions later on after we have gone through a bit of the presentation. So I will attempt to share my screen. You'd think after several years of lockdown and virtual everything, we'd all have this down pat, but you never know. Hopefully that's working for everyone. I have a small laptop screen, so I can't see you all at this point. So let's just cross our fingers and hope for the best. So yes, welcome to the University of York. That is me. That's not my house. That is the Minster, which is the absolutely enormous neo-Gothic cathedral, which is in the centre of the city of York. It is the second largest Gothic cathedral north of Barcelona, I guess, behind Cologne Cathedral in Germany. It is truly huge. Our students actually have access to the library at the cathedral, York Minster, which is a fantastic resource for many of them. So what is York? Why is York? And various other things. So we are one of those Russell Group universities that you probably don't know particularly much about. So obviously, as I'm sure all of you out there are aware, that the Russell Group very lazily, I would say we can describe it as the UK's Ivy League. So it is the 24 most research-intensive UK universities. So including the likes of Oxford and Cambridge and Edinburgh that I know you've heard from recently, and obviously lots of others that are in this Marshall Mondays / Tuesdays series. But as I said, York, probably one of the ones that is maybe less well known. We are a very young institution compared to all of those ones that I've just named. So we were celebrating our 60th birthday this year. So we have come a long way in a short space of time. So for a university only founded in the 60s to become so academically rigorous and research intensive to be accepted into the Russell Group in 2012, which York was, is quite an achievement. We were shortlisted for the Times Higher Education University of the Year in 2021. We didn't win, because otherwise my slide would say we won Times Higher Education University of the Year 2021. But we were shortlisted for many things, but a lot of it was our response to the pandemic and the way that we treated our students, the support that we gave our students was judged to be above and beyond, and that was based on the feedback that the students themselves were giving to the committee and to various other outlets. So very strong student support is a thread that runs right through everything we do, and I'll touch on that a bit later on. So the Times and or QS, as you're aware, the two sort of main rankings bodies or companies in the UK, they do rank those departments for York in the UK's top 10, and so those would be archaeology, biology and biological sciences, chemistry, criminology, education, English, French and the Iberian languages, history of art, linguistics, philosophy, psychology, and social policy and social work. So as you can see, York, a broad range university. It does have some specializations, as all universities do. I'm not going to come here and pretend that every single department at York is the best in the world. That's not the case. They are all very good, and it has absolute specialties in the programs that you can see there. And in the latest REF, so the Research Excellence Framework, sadly, I don't have apparently bracket putting in excellence, since I forgot the last bracket, but, or parentheses, so forgive me there. But the REF in 2021, which is a huge project, which you may or may not be aware of in UK higher education, which goes into massive detail into all the research that's produced from UK institutions. York did come out in the top 10. We ranked 10th in the UK for our research excellence, which is really fantastic. So that's punching well above our weight. You know, we're not the 10th largest institution. We have far from the 10th largest, you know, research grants and budget, but the output that we are producing was deemed to be inside that UK top 10. So a very, very strong thread of research, like I said, running right through everything that we do. And it might be something that Devin can touch on when we speak with him about the research possibilities and how, you know, how world leading that research is at York. There's not going to be a quiz on this. You don't have to remember all of the programs that we offer, but this is just to give you an idea of the 3 faculties at the University of York, so arts and humanities, the sciences and social sciences, and all the different options that are available for your students who are thinking of pursuing their postgraduate and thinking of coming to the UK and coming to York. So like I said, 30 academic departments. This, again, this idea of student support. So within the Russell Group, so again, that group of 24 most prestigious, most research-focused UK universities, York is rated by its own students as #1 for academic support. So every year there's a huge student survey gets sent out to every single student in the UK, and the results came back that the York students were the happiest with their academic support. So I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind when you are looking to counsel students who are looking for scholarships, for fellowships overseas. Yes, the UK is not radically different from North America. Again, something that Devin will absolutely be able to touch on about how the differences that he has found studying in the UK, studying at York compared to his home institution. But students do still need support. Things are different. The way that we teach, the way that we learn, the way that research is done, the way the essays are expected to be written, all that stuff is going to be a little bit different. So the idea of the academic support which is available for students is, I think, very, very important, and it's something that we really focus on at York. And that support, as we'll touch a little bit later on, is not just academic support. Again, it is humans who are coming to study at York. It is not academic robots. And instead, I will touch a little bit on that later on. And York is a global community, a global institution. So we have alumni from about 180 countries. About 28% of our overall student body is non-UK, and it's actually over half of our postgraduates. So it's about 56% of our postgraduates are not from the UK. So again, for what is a middle-sized provincial UK city, where if you ask people from London, they probably think that York is incredibly homogenous and everyone's English there. It's just not the case, and particularly at the university. So we have about somewhere between 5,500 and 6,000 non-UK students out of a total student population of 22,000. So it is a very diverse and very international student body. Is it as diverse as, I don't know, King's College London? No, of course it's not. London is a complete outlier in the UK. But I guess the point I'm making is that even though it's not London, it's not Birmingham, it's not Manchester, there is still a great international flavour at the school, at the university. So we are committed to the school model. I keep saying school, I guess I'm speaking to North Americans, that's why. The university was founded as a university for public good. That was the whole purpose of the university, and it's something that we are really refocusing on for our 60th anniversary in 2020, and of course beyond, is really remembering that is at the core of everything that we do, is to be a university for public good. And we do that through inspirational and life-changing research. And we have those particular 6 areas that you can see highlighted on the slide there that we really feel that we are absolutely world leading in justice and equality, environmental sustainability and resilience, creativity, health and well-being, technologies for the future, and culture and communication. Speaking of technologies for the future, that reminds me that we have just received a 2.5 million, I guess it was dollars because it was from America, a $2.5 million grant from the founder of Qualcomm, which is a large telecommunications network headquartered in San Diego, or a large company, which is funding our center for basically it's a centre for safe autonomy. So we're going to become one of the world leading institutions for research into self-driving cars and things like that. So a great mixture between our computer science, our electronic engineering, and our creative technologies department. So that's one of our major focuses. Did mention the student support earlier. So on top of that amazing academic support, we have a dedicated international student support team. So international students who are coming to York have the best possible support, because not only do they have access to the full range of support services at the university, but then they also have an entire team dedicated just to their issues. So things like if there's any visa problems, or if there's things like homesickness, maybe that are a bit different for international students, there is a team just for them. We have great study skills support as well. I was mentioning earlier, studying in the UK might be a little bit different, and again we'll ask Devon about that, what the differences that he's found and how he's been supported, or how he's helped to achieve what he's achieving currently at York. And then the welfare support. So we will touch on this, but York is a collegiate university. So similar to Oxford or Cambridge or Durham or Kent or Lancaster, which are the only other collegiate universities in the UK. We are where students live. It is split into colleges. They are not as independent as the colleges at Oxford or Cambridge. None of the teaching actually takes place in the colleges. They are purely residential and pastoral. But, and again, we can touch a little bit more on this, but it's a great community. It breaks down that larger university community into smaller, more manageable chunks when students move into a college, and these colleges have dedicated support staff that are there just to help students in that college. There's lots of social events, and there's student buddy system, and all kinds of things happening in the colleges to help students to settle in as quickly as possible. And then, of course, we have a lot of support for things like disability support, mental health support, counselling, access to all this kind of thing 24/7 to really help our students to thrive and achieve their full potential. What do our students do when they graduate? How does York help students? So we're in the top 20 universities in the UK targeted by leading employers, and then that is also, we are also in the top 10 for the graduate earning potential. So not only are York students, once they've come and done their undergraduate or their postgraduate, obviously in this case here, they are going to be targeted by the UK's largest employers, and said the potential is there to start their post-university career on a great salary. 94% of our postgraduates are in employment or have moved on to PhD studies within 6 months of graduating. And students do have access to the career service at York from day one of their studies and to day infinity beyond their studies. So we're one of the small group of universities that actually students have, graduates have unlimited access to the career service. I said ad infinitum. Most universities will allow students to have that kind of access maybe for a couple of years after they've graduated, but you have access in perpetuity to the York Career Service. And there's lots of opportunities to have meetings with them right from day one. So it's not just about the academics. I appreciate, obviously, in this forum, we are obviously, you guys are all counselling or are potentially really high achieving academic students. However, all work and no play makes everyone a very dull person. So York has a great, vibrant student life, including crew or rowing, as we like to call it in the UK, which you can see in the bottom half of the screen there. York is on a big river, which has several rowing teams, several crews on it. Also does mean that it does flood alarmingly often, the town. That shouldn't put anyone off, but it's quite spectacular when the river does overflow. But the university has over 200 student societies, and you can start your own. If there's not a society there that fits your interests, there is a really quick and easy mechanism to start up your own society. And then there's also over 65 sports teams, which range from competing all over the UK, representing the university, down to playing for your college and intramural sports, down to just staying fit and healthy. We have two large sports complexes, one on each of our main campuses, called the Sports Centre and the Sports Village. At the Sports Centre and the Sports Village, we have full sort of gym facilities, but then we also have an athletic stadium, we have an Olympic-sized swimming pool, we have acres and acres of sports fields, tennis courts, squash courts. We have one of the few velodromes in the UK, so if you're counselling students or you are a student who loves to track cycle, then York is the university for you. So yeah, loads of opportunities to get involved in stuff outside of the academics. That is a view on our East Campus. So you will know, and we'll talk a bit about the campus. So York is a city of about 200,000 people. We'll point out the location in a future slide. But we have two main campuses, they're next to each other and they're on the edge of the city. So as we like to say, it really is the best of both worlds. The location, it is a campus-based university, but that campus is in the city. It's on the edge of the city. So you're looking at about a 10-15 minute bus journey downtown, or you're looking at a 35-minute walk maybe downtown. Students can take free buses between our campuses, and the campus it's basically a nature reserve. And again, I'm sure Devin can talk about this being on campus here. It's basically like going to school on a nature reserve. Look at it, look at the slide. So my two favourite facts about our campus are that we are not allowed to build on more than a quarter of the land that we own. So it's always going to be 75% open and parkland and trees and lakes. And we can't build anything taller than the tallest tree on campus. So there are no tower blocks. There's no, 20-story buildings. Everything is sort of 5 levels and under. And my third favourite fact is there are more ducks per student than any other university in the UK. Ducks, geese, swans, foxes, otters. It's a really, really beautiful environment. Like I did mention, 11 colleges, private rooms, so our accommodation for postgrads that's available. We will definitely have a room for our postgraduate students. They're all single study bedrooms like most in the UK. They're usually, there'll be apartment style. There are options to be ensuite or shared bathroom. They're clean, they're safe, they're on campus. We're really proud of our accommodation offer, which comes with all bills included, so students know exactly the price they're going to pay for the accommodation. Is the price it says on the sticker. There's no surprise bills or anything afterwards. For postgraduates, I am not allowed to use the word guaranteed, but whatever the next word down in the strength list from guaranteed is. So for our undergraduates, we are allowed to guarantee accommodation. Postgraduates get priority, and last year we did not fill all of our bedrooms. So not allowed to use the word guaranteed. However, the fact that last year we still had bedrooms left over should tell you that there will almost certainly be a space on campus for you to come and study. Again, some of our facilities. Where is York? Whereas original York, as I like to say to the Americans, OG York, we are in the north of England and almost exactly in the middle of the UK. When York railway station was built, it was the largest railway station in the world. When York was very important. York is not as important nowadays. However, that railway network remains. So there's a train to London every 20 minutes and it takes less than 2 hours. Bear in mind, the UK is tiny, especially if you're coming from North America. So it's really, really easy to get everywhere. So again, people in London think York is in like Siberia somewhere. No, it's literally less than 2 hours away by train, and you can get there every 20 minutes. We're less than 2 hours with a direct rail link to Manchester Airport, which is our nearest big international airport. And I said you can get off your plane, get to the train station, which is in the terminal, and then sit down, and an hour and 45 minutes later get off at York. We also have an airport in Leeds, which is our nearest big city, which is about 25 minutes away from York. So as I said, York's about 200,000 people, Leeds is about 800,000. So for students who need their big city fix, it's really, really easy to travel around the UK. And then the city of York, just look at it, look at the city of York, it's beautiful. 2020, it was voted the best place to live in Britain, and it always features very highly on these lists of the UK's favourite city and the best place to live. It has the second lowest crime rate in England and Wales of university towns. I believe Bath have overtaken us, so I don't know if Bath are doing one of these Marshall series, but I'm sure they'll tell you they're number one now. But I said we are currently in second place on the lowest crime rate. There's an amazing scene, great historical scene, as you can see. Also, York is a UNESCO City of Media Arts. So to go along with all of the history, it also has a really thriving arts and culture scene and a very modern one. And 2019, before obviously all things went a bit weird in the world, we had over 8.5 million visitors to the city. So an incredibly popular city for people to come and visit. Again, not one of our halls of residence, but the but York Minster. And these are just some, pictures speak 1,000 words. So York is the city that you imagine an English city to be, with the cathedral, the medieval walls, the timbered buildings, all of that good stuff. Lots of pictures. And this was just a quote that I really like from one of our previous postgrads from, I think they were from India actually, but no matter where you're from, what you would like to do when you graduate, the York experience will challenge, inspire, develop and support you. I think that is a fantastic way to end, and I will stop sharing my screen. Excellent. So I hope that was a great introduction. I hope it was some kind of introduction to York. I would love to bring in Devin at this point because he's a real life student at the University of York, a scholar who has come from the US. Hi, Devin. Please introduce yourself, and if there's any opening remarks you would like to make.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everybody. My name's Devin. I am from Kansas City in the U.S. Went to the University of Notre Dame and graduated in 2022 and studied neuroscience and education there. And this year I am at the University of York doing a master's in mental health and well-being in education, and am a Fulbright scholar here. And it has been an amazing year at York. It was definitely a little bit daunting thinking about moving to a new country by myself, but really wanted to echo what Scott mentioned about the student support. I think from an academic sense, from the college network and socially, and especially as an international student, really have just felt supported from all angles and felt that the transition was as smooth as possible given the change. And I really appreciate that. And I think it's something I took for granted. And now just seeing all the different avenues in front of me through this presentation reminded me that it could have gone very differently had those support systems not been in place. And just really grateful to be here and excited for my last months this summer.
Awesome. That's great. It's really, really nice to hear actually, Devin, that you feel that kind of support. How did you find out about this opportunity and how did you end up deciding on York as your kind of major destination, whether that was because of the city, because of the course, because of the whatever it was? You tell me. I don't know why I'm putting words in your mouth.
Yeah. So when I was looking at postgraduate opportunities at my university and undergrad, I think for me the priority was trying to find a course that specifically aligned with what I was interested in. And having studied neuroscience and education, I was really became interested in how schools can play a role in supporting kids' mental health. And so I was trying to find a program that allowed me to study that specifically. And the mental health and well-being and education course at York was one of the only ones that specifically targeted that intersection. And that's what really drew me to the program and the city of York. And yeah, so for me, the priority was trying to find an academic alignment with my goals. And I think that was important for me to help narrow my search because there are so many different opportunities within the UK. So that may be a location for some people, opportunities of specific documents being somewhere, or a researcher doing something specific. For me, it was this program that had this unique intersection.
Awesome. How would you, thinking about, studying and studying back home in South Bend, Indiana, how would you say that it's the how you've been taught, how you learn, how you're expected to produce papers? I don't know, how's it been different at York, or has it been like a really smooth sort of academic transition for you?
Yeah, it has been very different from my undergrad experience. I think just the form of teaching is a little bit different. I think as you move to undergraduate to a postgraduate degree, there's increased amount of independence and autonomy that you have. And I think some of that's reflected in how frequently you have face-to-face time with lecturers. And so an undergrad would have a class that met maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And now it's generally each class or module has one meeting a week. And so that means that you may cover some things in lecture, but then you have this more time to yourself throughout the week to make sure you master that material. If you think you're going to write an essay about something, to really dive deep into it yourself. Or if there's a skill that you cover in research methods, you may have an overview in lecture, but then for you to actually master it and gain the practicality of it, you may need to take that ownership on yourself. And that was definitely a transition, but one that I think was made very clear from the start, and definitely had the support to ask questions and make sure I was keeping up to date as I should be. And I think the second thing that was probably the most different is just the form of assessments. I think I was used to having assignments and exams throughout the term that counted towards my final grade. And in my course here at York, all the assessments throughout the term are formative or not for a grade and just to help increase your understanding of the material. You generally have one due around halfway in the term to make sure that you're on the right track and you get feedback, which leads to the final assessment that you turn in at the start of the following term, which counts for the entirety of your grade. So that was a little bit different. There's definitely pros and cons to each way, but I've adjusted to this form and definitely learned some time management and trying to put timelines on myself throughout the term to avoid it all being due at once at the end.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And how do you feel that I mean, you mentioned that you felt very well supported. Is that through the lecturers, through the tutors, through like what form, I guess, has that support taken for you?
Yes, I think in the first term it was really helpful. There were academic support sessions that were on our timetables or schedules for the term that were just solely not about course content, but about how to do well in the course itself. So that helped set expectations for writing an essay and what that looked like, how citing looks different, and what the expectations are within the Department of Education. And that was really helpful just because I wasn't sure how I'd need to change my writing and how to change just the structure of an assignment, and how to read and what was actually expected. And so I think those sessions at the beginning were really helpful to just learn the how of how to succeed in a program like this. That was really new to me. And then also just the availability of the lectures, and then having the assignment of a pastoral supervisor who you meet with there to kind of be that person to ask questions to, were all different avenues that helped me feel supported.
I'm so happy you've said all that, because I always tell people that this happens at York and it's wonderful, but it's I mean, I'm not a student. It's really great to hear that what we provide is genuinely like helpful, and yeah, that's really wonderful. I'm genuinely really happy to hear about that. How much did you know about York as a university or a city before you came, and what have you kind of learned, or what surprised you, I guess, from being here?
Yeah, so about the university and the city, I did not know much before coming. I think the course was really what sold me. And I met with the program lead and really talked about it one on one and what the program had to offer, and made sure it was a strong fit for my interests. And once I had a strong feeling about that, I went ahead and shaped my application around that. Um, but I knew it had the collegiate system at the university, which I was really excited about, coming from a very community-oriented undergrad. And I kind of liked the idea of being outside of London, I think, and having a chance to really get to know a smaller city. But I think that was kind of what I went in with. And when I did come here, I think I was surprised a little bit about how interesting it was to have this very old city that was exactly what you would think of with an old English town or old English city. But then a 25-minute walk away, have this really new and modern university that's settled on, like you said, like a nature reserve. And kind of having access to these two very different environments has been a lot of fun, to have both at my disposal, and really getting to know the campus, but also getting to know York itself. And I think also the international student body here, it was especially within the post-grad population, has been really fun to be a part of, to have friends that are from the UK, but then also have classmates that are coming from around the world, and especially within a smaller course where we have a lot of discussions, hearing how their education systems are different in my course about education systems has been really interesting, and made my eyes aware of some things that I don't think I would have gotten if it was just focused on the UK context solely.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually. Yeah, that's really, again, that's really fantastic to hear. And what kind of things have you got up to? What kind of opportunities, I guess, have you taken advantage of? Like you were saying, you've been here. I'm sure it feels like you've been here a month, but you've been here a while now, and you're kind of sort of coming towards the end. Like professionally or academically or personally, what kind of stuff have you managed to do in your time here?
Yeah, so outside of the top program, at the beginning of the term, I was actually able to be connected to one of the researchers in the Department of Education that does studies that are really aligned with my own interests, and actually joined his research group. And so was able to go to research meetings on a weekly basis, and start working on a research project with them that will feed into my dissertation that I'm working on now. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity. One, just the openness of just expressing interest and being welcomed into a research group with different PhDs and current researchers and faculty at the university. I think just being plugged in right away kind of shows how available people are here. And so that was really awesome. And I've been able to develop a skill set that I know will benefit me down the line. So that's one of the most exciting things, I think. But in a more like social sense, I think really just getting to take advantage of all the different opportunities that the Wentworth College, the postgraduate college here, and the Graduate Student Association puts on. I think that was another thing that was very surprising, just how much there is to do, and how I thought there'd maybe be a little bit less support for graduate students compared to undergrad, but that hasn't been the case. There's post-grad trips to different cities in the UK organized. for the weekend. And there's post-grad free sports throughout the week where you can sign up and do badminton and tennis or soccer or football. And I've definitely taken advantage of all those things to meet other postgrads and also just have a nice balance to the academic and research studies here. And lastly, I think with the kind of flexibility with the program and being within the UK and having access to the airports, it's been fun to take weekend trips outside of the UK as well and get to explore Europe.
Oh, awesome. Where have you been?
My favorite places I've been able to go, I've been to Rome for a weekend and Amsterdam, and I think those were big highlights for me.
Yes, very different cities, but I love them both. Rome is just chaos, and Amsterdam is like just it's so chilled, and that's awesome. And I guess lastly, before we sort of throw it open to any questions, do you have any advice for anyone who's watching that was is in the position that you were in a couple of years ago and sort of considering their options? Like, is there anything, any advice that you would give?
Yeah, I think something that was really helpful that I heard in kind of thinking about taking this step to study was trying to find something that really is unique about the UK, about the course, that you wouldn't necessarily be able to replicate anywhere else. And I think with the topic of mental health and education, there's just some really distinct differences between the US and the UK, with there being a national curriculum here that has a focus on mental health, and seeing that being recently released and rolled out in classrooms and getting to talk about that with people that are here and experiencing that has been really interesting, and something that I think really helped my application, one, but then also will just be something that I carry back to the US, and that I wouldn't have been able to do there. And so I think trying to think about that is really helpful and can maybe help, again, like find what's the right best fit for you.
I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, Devin. And speaking as someone who looks at a lot of applications and a lot of scholarship application things, that stands out so much for the students who have really thought about, like, why is doing this course at the University of York or wherever, like, why is that the important thing? Not just, I want to get a business studies degree. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, you could do that anywhere. Like, so that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much. That was awesome, Devin. I guess we can throw it open if anyone out there in Cyberland has questions for myself or for Devin. I guess you can unmute and whatever the equivalent is for video and ask questions. Perhaps we were just so comprehensive, Devin, that there's no questions required. Would you like to ask a question, Hayley?
I can think of some, I'm sure. Let's see. I guess living in York, would you feel like you hang out with people like more international students? Do you have a lot of friends that are from the UK? Like, I guess kind of how do you feel like you fit into York as a city and as a university?
Yeah, so I think I have a pretty good mix, I would say. I would say my closest friends are from the UK, but then there's also a really large and active international student group that I feel very welcomed in and also will hang out with. And there's also a lot of mixture in between that. My course is primarily students from the UK, but then socially outside of the classroom, I feel like I sometimes see people that are more international. So I'd say most of my friends come from the university, but then it's a pretty good mix, I would say, with the UK and international.
That's interesting. I guess it probably depends on what kind of course you're doing as well. Some courses, like the one you're doing in education, might attract a more UK-based cohort rather than something else might be a bit more international. That's interesting. think Teresa has popped a question in the chat. So they've said, perhaps I misunderstood, but did Devin say he was doing a Fulbright MA at the University of York? That's correct.
Correct.
What would you, Devin, if you could tell past Devin one piece of advice, what would you say in terms of like embracing the whole experience, I guess?
Yeah, I think just going in and say yes to everything. I think I did do that, but I was really nervous to do it. But now having seen how much that paid off in terms of meeting people and just professional opportunities of reaching out to different professors about talking about research and getting involved with projects. I wish I could go back and just be more confident in those decisions. But now having done it, I think it's something I definitely want to carry forward.
No, that's great. It sounds like you've developed like a soft skill, I guess, so to speak, that you can take with you as well, that you might not have maybe, yeah, had the same opportunity to kind of capitalize on if you hadn't come to the UK, for example. So that's interesting.
Absolutely.
We've got another question in the chat. So Mark's asked if you could speak to how your career services office works with international students or would work with an international student.
Yeah, so in very similar ways to home students, obviously on the student visa that students have for the UK, they can work up to 20 hours per week and they can do almost anything. They can't be professional sports people and they can't run their own business, but apart from that, they can do anything else. So in terms of part-time work, placements, short-term internships, that kind of thing, there really should be very, very few barriers or anything that would make it different for an international student to work with our careers team. All of our students are signed up to a platform called Handshake, which I'm sure Devin knows about, which is a kind of all-encompassing platform for those part-time jobs, but also for future career opportunities. With students being allowed to remain in the UK for 4 months after their programme finishes. They can take that time to look for work, to look for internships, to look for something else. And then the UK has recently restored, thankfully, the 2-year stay back visa, the post-study work visa that students can apply for when they're in the UK on their programme, and that allows them to remain in the UK for 2 years post-study, as the name suggests. And that is not a sponsored visa, so students can work multiple jobs, they can change jobs, they can shuffle around until they find somewhere that is hopefully going to sponsor them for a longer time. So in that sense, there's really nothing particularly different about international students if they're wanting to stay in the UK. If they are looking to immediately go back home, that is going to be slightly more tricky, because the career service is not going to have the same connections than it does with UK companies or UK organisations. However, it will have links with various, particularly sort of more government agencies and more like multinational companies, I guess, from around the world. So I would still strongly encourage students to get in touch with the career service and see what links they have, even if they know that they do want to go back home as soon as they have graduated. But certainly for short-term things and for things in the UK, there's really very little difference for students who are UK passport holders or not.
Thanks, Scott. We've got another question from Susan. So Susan said, Devin, would you be willing to share what you proposed as your host country engagement projects in your Fulbright application?
I had experience in undergrad working for a after-school conflict resolution program, and did some tutoring projects in math and reading for elementary school students. And so I proposed being able to work in schools and potentially maybe be able to carry over some of the lessons from the conflict resolution program into schools surrounding York. And York has or the University of York has a program, York Students in Schools, where they send university students to volunteer within schools. And so have been able to take part in that. Teaching the lessons that I was familiar with back home has not happened just due to some of the logistics, but getting involved with the schools was my main way I'd proposed the country engagement.
Oh, that's really interesting. Has it been, I guess, kind of eye-opening seeing the different structure that a school in the UK has versus what you were used to in the US?
Yes, definitely. And it's really fun to talk a lot about the classroom in my classes, but then also get to see that paired with being in one and seeing it as well. So grateful to kind of have both of those perspectives.
Yeah, that's probably good to have that practical insight as well as what you're kind of learning in the lectures and seminars. Thanks, Devin. Don't see any more questions in the chat. Don't know if anyone has any final thoughts.
That wasn't a question that I've just written. I was just pointing out that I guess go back to the career service, what the transferable things that we do would be students working on their resume, their CV. We run lots of things about like psychometric test taking and all that kind of stuff, and like mock interviews and interview preparation, which would all be useful for students no matter where they were ultimately going to end up studying, living, working. Well, excellent. We have converted Teresa. We'll look forward to her arrival.
No, definitely. I mean, I think you missed out on the Viking Museum as well.
Yes.
You can't forget the Viking Museum, and also the fact you can get your entire Sunday roast dinner and a massive Yorkshire pudding, which is also a big selling point in my opinion.
We now have like Yorkshire puddings filled with, as you said, all the stuff you expect in a Sunday dinner, but like in a wrap. So they've now made like a thinner Yorkshire pudding. Devon's like, yep, I've had some of these. You can get them in a wrap and like walk about the town, so eating it like a sort of like a burrito, except it's a Yorkshire pudding with a Sunday roast dinner.
I would also
Yes,
say
definitely. You need the energy for walking all the hills.
Yeah, I would also say the Christmas markets and the shambles at Christmas is absolutely spectacular. And like there was a pub right near the Minster that was I think it was one that was Guy Fawkes was meant to have been in there before he went to London and did his thing. But it's like the coziest, warmest pub, and it's a great way to spend the day while you listen to the bells outside. So yeah, York is pretty spectacular.
Susan wants to move there too. I think maybe we should just all move to York. That's the moral of the presentation. Is that.
Exactly. Pictures
all
of York make for good Christmas background pictures in December, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't see any more questions. So I guess this is us done. So Scott and Devin, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and a bit more information about York. It seems like everyone found it really helpful. And we'll be sharing the recording with colleagues who were unable to join us today. And Scott, I'm sure, is happy to answer any questions, and Devin perhaps as well, that you might think of after the presentation today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hayley, Stephanie, and Devin, like most of all, and thanks everyone for checking in. Yeah, please do feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions about York whatsoever.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.